Hi, and welcome to The Bright Balloon, a podcast where I'm sharing bright ideas for your balloon business. My name is Sarah Meyer, and I'm a balloon business owner like you, and I love the creative side of what I do, but I really love the business side, which seems to be the part where most people struggle. So I'm here to help. Each week, I'm bringing you an episode full of bite-sized tips you can use to make improvements in your business. I want you to make more money, eliminate stress, and learn along with me as we grow our creative businesses together. Welcome to The Bright Balloon, presented by 17 Hats. Hello and welcome to this episode. This is an important one, you guys. I am chatting with my insurance agent, Erin, about everything from liability insurance, home-based business, vehicle, health insurance. We touch on all of it, and you will hear my brain explode during this episode when I realize how underinsured I am. I set up my insurance policy 8 years ago when I started my business, and I have grown so much in that time that I had no idea how little coverage I actually had, and this interview was a wake-up call. So since recording, I have met with Erin, updated my policy. I'm in a much safer and better place for the size of my business right now, and there's many people who don't have any insurance, and I think many of you are probably like me, where you set it up once, you forgot about it, and you have no idea what your coverage or your policy actually is. So this is not an episode to scare you. It is an episode to protect you and give you a direct resource where you can reach out and get some insurance right now. So Erin's email address is linked in the show notes, and just reach out to her and put balloons in the subject line so she knows exactly why you're reaching out and she can help you and get you sorted. Before we jump in, just a quick note that this month over in the book club on our Patreon group, I am reading through a book about a virtual assistant, and I've taken a ton of action. I have hired a virtual assistant. I am now working with someone who is managing my email and my incoming sales, and it's an exciting month over there. So if you're looking for more podcast episodes, or if you're just looking to support this podcast, that is the easiest way to do it. There is a link to sign up. It's $5 a month, and that will be in the show notes as well. Last but not least, we are about to head over to the U-Glue hotline to hear some great advice that sticks, but I just wanted to remind you that this hotline is powered by you guys. So if you have a tip, if you have a secret that you want to share, or if you have a question that you'd like to ask, please use the number also linked in the show notes to call in. You'll go directly to a voicemail, and you can leave your recording to be on the podcast. So that really helps us out and get some really interesting content and insight into these episodes. All right, without further ado, let's head over to the U-Glue hotline. Welcome to the U-Glue hotline, where we discuss great advice that sticks, brought to you by Pro Tapes. If you have a question or some great advice to share, click the link in the show notes to call in and leave a voicemail.
Hi, my name is Misty Kostman. I am from Balloons by Misty in Grand Forks, North Dakota. My tip is for your bottle of high float. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm always using the cap that goes on there, and I've tried putting a 260 on there, and that seems to be a struggle as well sometimes. So what I found is I take a float tube that I bought off of Amazon. They come with a little cover on them. I leave that cover on there. That is the perfect size to slip over my my high float container, the nozzle, and it stays nice and moist and doesn't dry up that way. And that tube is really easy to pull off and put back on, and it'll catch any drips, anything like that. And so that is my tip for the day.
Pro Tapes is a leading manufacturer of specialty tape products like Pro Gaff, Pro Artist Tape, and our favorite balloon tape, U-Glue, which helps you create amazing balloon arrangements and decorations in less time. You can save 5% on U-Glue when you buy directly from Having a Party using code BRIGHT at checkout. Welcome, Erin. I'm so excited to chat with you about the thing none of us really want to talk about, unfortunately, but
Right.
insurance. So, Erin, you are an agent with Country Financial, and you are going to help us out today because a lot of us are creative. We start our businesses, and before we know it, we have like an actual business and need a little bit of protection. So, we are going to talk all about insurance, and there's a lot to it. Just you and I met for coffee. And it's not as
Yeah.
straightforward as I thought it was, you guys. So we are going to get into some of those conversations today. But why don't you
Yeah.
introduce yourself quickly?
So I am Erin Gabriel. I work for Country Financial. I've been insurance licensed for, like 19 years now. But yeah, I'm able to do all the things, from home, auto, life, commercial, anything and everything, health insurance. So yeah, it's fun. I know it's confusing, so
Fun.
I'll try to
I
keep
don't know.
it.
Our definitions of fun is different, but
No, I agree. I'll try to keep it as simple as possible because I know it can be insanely confusing and yeah.
well, and I think a lot of us, I certainly for me, the first time that I even thought about insurance was when I was asked for it. Like I was asked
Right.
for a venue to provide my certificate of insurance. And then you have that panic moment of like, wait a minute, I don't have that. What am I supposed? Have I been doing something illegal? Like, am I wrong? Like, so
Right.
I think if anyone's listening and you don't have insurance, don't freak out because it's easy to get, but you do need to have it.
Definitely.
So let's kind of start with kind of the basics. I would say there's two big categories of balloon people, and we're either home based or
Right.
we have more of like a storefront, like a retail, or some people are kind of in between with like a warehouse. So people aren't coming in necessarily, but they're like renting a space. So let's start with home based because I think that's a lot of our listeners who are
Okay.
working out of their home. What type of insurance do they even need to be covered, and what does it even cover? I don't even know.
Well, as far as the business side, so when you're working from home, you really just have to focus on your business personal property, which is like, your desk and your cell phone and your stock, all of your inventory for balloons. But then also having liability for when you are in other places, delivering or setting up or taking down or whatever it is, and possibly insurance for items that you may be leaving there for whatever set amount of time and then coming back and getting them the next day or later on or whatever it is. You want to make sure that everything, no matter where it is and where you are, you're covered on all sides.
Oh, interesting.
You just
See, I've
never
never
know.
even thought about that. So if you have like rental items and you go back and they're destroyed, you would have those insured.
Definitely. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So the home base is pretty simple.
Mhm.
That's like if your house burns down,
Right.
your business is covered. The liability, that is the one that they really ask for a lot. So no matter where your business is, you need that. So what is
Definitely.
that covers you or covers them?
Well, both. It generally, if they're asking for insurance, that means they want to make sure that you have coverage so that if something does happen, they're not going to be held liable for it. They want to make sure anybody that they're working with is totally covered. When you have a storefront, really the only difference between all the other types that I just said would be making sure you have the location listed for the liability for the actual location. If anybody comes there to pick up or whatever it may be, somebody slips and falls outside, just making sure that that is covered as well, that location. But you can still work from home as well and have, items moving all over, but just making sure that that's listed as a workplace.
Okay. So that already feels kind of overwhelming. So if someone's listening and has no insurance, they need liability and they need to insure the place where they're working and their stuff. Right.
Yeah,
okay. And that's pretty easy to do from your point of view?
It is. That's the easiest part of it. And I mean, each situation is going to be a little bit different depending on, maybe some people not only do balloons, maybe they have flowers or they have like a gift shop or something, or, it can get a little bit more complicated, but in general, you just want make sure the liability is definitely in place because that's where you get the paperwork to show event locations and things if they are asking for your insurance. And then, the other stuff is just kind of extra. If you have a van or something, you want to make sure that's listed on the policy. If you need like health insurance or workers' comp, that all gets kind of stacked on. So it's kind of a little, little here, a little bit there, but just kind of, that's why it's really important to talk to someone and not just try to guess, like go online and just pick something because who knows?
So does that is that like one giant policy that includes all that stuff, or do you have to have like 50 little insurance policies?
No, that would all be in one. It's just, kind of a la carte, like picking, okay, I do need coverage for this. I don't need coverage for that. I do need this, and it just all gets wrapped into one policy.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So let's make it more complicated now.
If it wasn't already.
You touched on it. So deliveries and having a van, that's like a new thing. You obviously need like car insurance.
Right.
But like there's more to that too. Like you're driving around. What if you, I don't know, crash into someone's house? Is that just
Mhm.
your vehicle insurance covers that? Or then is your business on the line? Like, how does that all work?
So, I mean, ideally, if you have a vehicle that's just for your business, like if it specifically says your business name on the side, it's owned by if you have an LLC or whatever it is, you want that listed on your commercial policy or business policy. Some states, I mean, and again, just a disclaimer, I don't work everywhere. So definitely check in with every state, but because all laws are different, but your personal your personal auto policy isn't necessarily going to cover the business purposes side of it. So you want to make sure that, if there's any special floaters or anything you need to add on to that policy, that's really important. But in general, if it's just for the business, it's not your personal vehicle, you're not using it to take the kids to school or any of that kind of thing, it would be better just to keep it separate on your commercial policy, because then it's covered for any business purpose that could possibly come up.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. And I want to talk about employees, but I don't want to get there quite yet, because then that's like another can of worms of employees driving your van. So like, oh my gosh, my brain. Before we talk about employees, let's just go to worst case scenario. Like, I think everyone's worst case scenario is like, I'm going to get sued. Like something's going to happen and someone's going to sue me. So in order to not be afraid of that, or I guess if you could walk us through like a realistic situation where that would happen, what does that look like? Because I've obviously never been sued. I don't think anyone would probably sue you. That would have to be really extreme. But like filing a claim, I mean, it could be something like I put my ladder up and I scratched someone's perfect wood floors. Like, what does that actually look like? Because I think that's what I'm really scared of, but maybe it's not that scary.
It's a lot like a home claim or an auto claim. If you crash into somebody else's car, you got to call the insurance company and get things moving. And then, hopefully you have the right coverage to make sure that that's paid for. And it's the same in this type of scenario where, if you are somewhere where you scratch their floors, or one of your setups falls over and knocks down a bunch of stuff and something catches on fire. I mean, who knows? Any situation could happen, but it's just like any other claim where you call the insurance company and they kind of walk you through everything. The likelihood of there being some huge, lawsuit from it is pretty slim. But if that were to happen, again, that's where the insurance company is going to hold your hand and kind of walk you through the process. If there is depending on the size of your company, and again, I don't want to get too far into the weeds, but that's where like an umbrella policy would come in. And you may have heard of that through like your home insurance. Sometimes people have a home policy, an auto policy, and an umbrella that covers both. Just in case your liability is not enough on each of those policies, the umbrella then jumps in and picks up whatever that difference is.
Interesting.
If there's a lawsuit. So an umbrella is also an option for a business policy too.
Okay. And then what do we actually do if that happens? So say it's a Tuesday, I get a phone call. It's a client who's pissed. Something fell over and, knocked their chandelier off their ceiling. Like, what do I actually do? I dig into my insurance paperwork and I find the number and I call it, or do I get their insurance? Do I give them my insurance? Like, I don't actually know the step for filing that.
Oh, sure. So yeah, the first step is usually just calling the insurance company. And then depending on, each situation is kind of different. If they're the one that, broke something of yours, you want to get their information. But if it's just, a client's upset because they're not happy that something happened at their home or at their location, just starting with calling the insurance company, and then they'll know what information to gather from the other person if they need that, or they'll just kind of set everything up and get the ball rolling so that you can just rest easy that it's being taken care of and you don't have to, hold all of that on your shoulders.
Yeah. That's interesting. And insurance, it protects you, but also having some sort of LLC or like your business should also be a legit business that protects you too as well. Like you should have that in addition to insurance.
100%. That's a huge piece, because in a lot of situations, if there is a lawsuit or there is a big problem, they can access your personal assets. If it's not under an LLC separately from your own, assets and things in your home, your autos or whatever, all of that is protected under an LLC. In most states, again, disclaimer, but I'm not an attorney. I just want to get that out there. But yeah, it's really important to have the two separate.
Okay.
because you don't
So
want
if I
one coming
didn't,
to the other and vice
and
versa.
my balloon somehow caught someone's house on fire and I was totally to blame. I don't know how that would
Mhm.
happen, but if it did,
Right.
so if I didn't have an LLC, they could be like, well, your insurance only covers $1 million and our property was worth $10 million. So we're coming
Mhm.
after your home, your retirements,
Yep.
your car, like they'll just
Everything.
take everything.
Yep. They can, if it's not protected separately, they totally have access to all of your things.
I have a stomach
Yeah.
ache. Even though I have all these things, it just makes me so nervous.
Right. Well,
Okay.
even, I mean, and it is by state. So some laws are different, if it could be where that's not the case, but I'm not familiar with laws in all states and all the
Yeah.
things. So that's
So the
definitely
big
something to look
things,
into, but
well, and you don't do the LLC stuff, but that is a big
no.
takeaway.
Oh yeah,
You should be an LLC. You shouldn't just be
definitely.
operating as a sole proprietor. And then you
Hmm.
have to talk to someone, talk to you. We're going to give your information at the end. And you need to have that conversation about the liability insurance and then
Hmm.
the insurance that's going to protect your stuff. It sounds really complicated, but at the end of the day, it's really those two things that are the big ones, right?
It is, yeah. And I can't stress enough talking to someone versus just going online and click, 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 and oh, now I have insurance. Like you don't know for sure that you have the right insurance or the right pieces to your insurance puzzle, like because every situation is different. You just want to make sure that you have the right stuff. And
Yeah.
you don't just have a general liability policy when in fact you're delivering stuff or there could be a bunch of, overexposed areas that you're
Cool.
leaving open.
Ooh, okay, let's take a
Yeah.
break. And
Very.
then I want to talk about employees
Mhm.
or the more likely scenario, which I think a lot of us dabble in, which is like when we just kind of have helpers, like they're not really
Right.
employees. And I think that's kind of a mystery zone for me. So we'll take a break and
Yeah.
then we'll come right back. Are you ready to take your balloon business to the next level? Look no further than Having a Party Wholesale, your ultimate destination for all things balloons. At Having a Party Wholesale, they're not just a distributor, they're your partner in success. With the latest and greatest in balloon innovations, they're on the cutting edge of new products that will wow your clients. From top brands like Tuftex, Jamar, Anagram, Ellie's, Premium Conwin, and more, they've got the widest selection to fuel your creativity. Elevate your balloon business with premium quality balloons and accessories that'll make every event unforgettable. Join the successful league of professional balloon artists who shop at haveanaparty.com. Welcome back. Let's talk about employees. So I don't
Okay.
have any official employees. I have contractors. Sometimes my
Mhm.
husband will go and take down a job. Like
Sure.
there's a lot of people who are kind of in the works, but no one is necessarily like under my insurance, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So am I playing
Right.
with fire? Like, what do I need? I know there's like workman's comp. They can have their own workman. Like, I don't even know. What do I need to do with
Yeah.
employees or contractors?
So as far as contractors go, if that is the case and they're covering their own, they're sole proprietors, you want to make sure that they have insurance because if they're not listed under your policy, it's important that they're still covered because say they're not and something happens at an event location, the event location comes after the contractor and they either don't have or don't have enough insurance. It's still going to end up in your lap because you contracted with them and so it could still end up in your lap either way. It's important just to make sure that they do have coverage, which really you have to kind of weigh the pros and cons versus having contractors and having employees because having employees then adds in, okay, you got to pay extra for, doing their salaries or their, all of the payroll. And then you may have to offer workers' comp or life insurance, or I'm sorry, health insurance, or all the different parts of having employees where your expenses could be higher versus just having contractors. But that contractor part is as long as they have their own policy. If they're
Yeah.
employees, they're covered under yours. But if they're contractors, they have to have their own because most of them are supposed to carry their own insurance too.
Yeah, right.
But there's the people that buy a policy, pay monthly, they set it up to pay monthly. They get their certificate of insurance to prove they have a policy that shows a year from now being the end date. And then they just don't pay for the policy, but they keep that little piece of paper. And unless the contractor calls to verify, it's, the policy is canceled because they're not paying for it, but they have that, they can go everywhere and show.
I think that's so interesting because as a business owner, I feel like I've kind of learned like contractors the way to go. It's easier. Right. They do their own taxes, but it's almost like the bigger my company grows, the more I'm like, I don't know. I'm leaning towards employees now. Like, yes, there's the payroll taxes, but like there are other benefits that kind of help you protect yourself. And I think this would be one of them. Like if it's an employee and it's this black and white situation, a lot gets clarified, including, it sounds like, this insurance situation.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there are extra expenses. I mean, in all states, you don't have to offer workers' comp. I mean, you can have a workers' comp policy that's a little bit less expensive if you don't include yourself on it. But yeah, it's almost worth just having employees because you know for sure, like they're under your umbrella of insurance and they're going to they're going to be covered, you know,
right. Otherwise, like you don't really
situation.
know.
You don't really know. Yeah. And it still ends up in your lap anyway. So like, is it worth that risk of,
Interesting. Okay. Can we talk about workman's comp? Because I totally know what it is, but I'm sure people listening might not. Obviously. No, I've always been confused because the liability insurance and the workman's comp, I've always been very confused about those. Because don't they just protect the workers? And in my case, I'm the only worker. So like what? I don't get it. What is workman's comp?
Well, so workers' comp is just if somebody gets injured on the job, that's going to help them. You don't necessarily, as a business owner, have to be listed on the policy. You can just offer it to the employees. But yeah, liability and workers' comp, it's almost like liability to your employees versus liability to, you know, all the other situations, all the other locations, somebody could get hurt, whatever, just liability, general liability for the company versus liability directly to your employees saying like, I will help you if something were to happen, you're covered, you know, and many states actually require it. So you don't really have a choice anyways, but yeah, it's not, in most states, it's not insanely expensive either. And if you have employees, you might have to pay it no matter what, but it's definitely something that's important.
Well, and again, kind of the same thing, like as I grow bigger and more stable, these things just seem like nice, like good practice. Like I now have someone who helps me on installs and like she's not protected at all. And if she fell off a ladder and broke her arm and then I found out she couldn't pay the medical bills, like I would feel awful. Like I wouldn't sleep. Like that would be the worst thing ever. So when I started, you know, when you're bootstrapping, it's really hard to wrap your head around all of these extra hoops and expenses. And it, you know, there are people who don't even pay taxes when they start, but it's like the bigger you get, the more it's like, it feels worth it to have some of these things.
Definitely.
Especially, I would feel so bad if someone got hurt and I hadn't done the thing that I was supposed to help them in that situation. I would feel so terrible.
Yeah. I mean, just somebody with a conscience in general, you know, you want to make sure that anybody that's helping you, you're going to be able to help them if something were to happen. And yes, it's extra expenses, but you know, as your business grows, unfortunately, that's just kind of something that comes with the territory to make sure that in any scenario you're covered. You know, you want to be able to sleep at night knowing that, you know, anything that could come up tomorrow, the next day, in a year, it's going to be taken care of because I have the right thing in place versus like, oh no, what if this happens? What if that happens? You know, always like worrying about it and losing sleep over it. So it's definitely important.
Hi, this is Jeff at Balloon Suite. I'm often asked if Balloon Suite is compatible with the systems that you already use in your business, your customer relationship manager, your accounting tool, the way that you're accepting leads on your website, or the phone call system that you're using to have a business number separate from your mobile number. The answer is almost always yes. So if you're thinking about using Balloon Suite, or if you've checked out our packages but you haven't started yet because you're wondering if Balloon Suite is compatible with the other systems you use in your business, I would love to help you get that defined, specific, clearly actionable answer. Come on over to balloonsuite.com. Let me know what you're using, and we can help you figure out exactly how you're going to integrate that into your Balloon Suite package.
Well, okay. So we talked about this a little bit when we had coffee, but you talked about annual checkups, and that's something that I have never even thought of. I just thought like, well, I have insurance, it's fine. But speaking of growth, you said a lot of companies outgrow their policies and then they never update them, and they're severely underinsured.
Yeah, because many of these types of companies go by your annual revenue. And if that's not updated, or, you know, if you have employees and you're paying wages, like the salaries are part of it as well. So all of that's taken into account to determine your coverage level. Okay. Well, if you're saying I only make $25,000 a year, when in fact your gross is like, you know, 150 or 200,000 or something, that's a huge difference in coverage. The policy, the premiums aren't necessarily going to be, you know, 5 times as much because your income is 5 times more, but it's really important. You just don't want to have that huge difference because it could mean, your company goes under. If
Yeah.
something were to happen and you don't have the right coverage, I mean, it could mean no more. So
Yeah. I've never even
yeah,
thought
that's
of
pretty
that. Like
scary.
it's never occurred to me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly me. Like I've had the same insurance
Yeah.
policy for probably 5 years now. I get the thing in the mail, I pay it, I send it off, it's done. And it's like,
Right.
oh, that was so easy. I didn't even have to do anything. But like, I don't even know what I'm insured for. Like, I have no idea. And that makes me feel so dumb. I felt like I had all of my, I's dotted and T's crossed. And then we met and I was like,
Right.
oh my God.
Oh no. Well, I mean, it's the same for auto and home insurance. I mean, if you're not
Mhm.
regularly looking in on it, or if you just went online again and just picked anything, I probably need this or I probably need that, but the coverages aren't necessarily high enough. If you're not checking in annually as your own net worth increases and there's a huge gap, it's the same situation. You could, if there's a lawsuit or something, you could end up in a really, really bad situation.
Yeah. Well, I'm exactly the person you're talking to. I got asked for a certificate of insurance. I didn't have insurance. I went online and I clicked, like whatever gave me the cheapest rate and that certificate of insurance. And it's been smooth sailing ever since. But now I'm going to bring you my paperwork and be like, fix me, fix my business.
Well, especially in 5 years. I mean, imagine
Yeah.
where you were 5 years ago versus today. There's probably a pretty substantial difference.
Because at the time, it honestly felt like this weird technicality, like, oh, whatever, I just need to do whatever I need to do to get this paperwork. I'm just dabbling in balloons. And now I'm like, oh, wait, I have an actual business and I'm self-employed and like considering employees. I should probably figure some stuff out.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the policy needs to grow with your business. So that's really, really important to make sure. And annual checkups. I mean, if something changes throughout the year, annual might not even be enough. If suddenly you're getting these huge contracts and there's been a substantial change just even in 6 months. I mean, even then it'd be worth a phone call because the 6 months from when it increased to another 6 months from there, it could be twice as much from that. And then you're just, creating this huge snowball effect. So,
well, mine is even crazier now that I'm thinking about this out loud because I started as a face painter. So like that was the insurance I had for the first few years. It like wasn't even for the business I was actually doing. And now I have some rentals and stuff. I have a van. Like none of this stuff existed when I first got my policy. So like, yes, I have insurance, but I think I'm a far way from being set. So we are going to chat definitely after this episode. And speaking of which, let's tell everyone where they can get in touch with you because you're working with balloon people, which is great because I think the most annoying thing is when I have to explain to people what I do. Like they're like hot air balloons or what? And I don't know. I'm just like, I don't have time to talk about balloon twisting and balloon dogs. I don't want to get into the whole thing. Just know your stuff and help me out. So I'm a big fan of people who know the industry. So you are prepared to help balloon people. You mentioned you can't work in all states, but you work in a good number of states, right?
Yeah. And if I'm not in a particular state, I can help, direct to a good person who could help. But
perfect.
Yeah, so just sending me an email is probably best. We can list that in the show notes and just make sure. But yeah, that's probably the best place to start. And then from there, we can, create more of a relationship.
Yeah, we'll put a direct link so you can just click and send an email to Erin and just put in your subject line balloons. I think you'll know what that means. Right. Because I know I need to schedule like a checkup with you. We got to get all my stuff sorted out so that I feel better. And we didn't even get into health insurance. Let's talk about that real quick because you do health insurance too?
I do. Yep.
Okay. That was the thing keeping me at my day job for probably 4 years longer than I should have been there because people just scare you into thinking that getting your own health insurance is impossible. But you do that too. And it's not impossible, right?
It's not. Yeah. Fortunately, the premiums aren't insane as they used to be. I mean, it is all based on how many people you have on your policy and ages and, but with, recent changes, it's actually not as hard as it was to get insurance on your own. So,
and I do think it's really hard when you go on like the open market website yourself. It's awful. Like it's awful. And then a million people start calling you and it's just horrendous. So I think working with someone that could actually help you. And I'll share my numbers. I think for my family, we pay like $900 a month for our health insurance, which I think is fine. It was $800 a month coming out of my paycheck at my day job. So if anyone's listening and just has no clue, people scared me. People were just like, oh, it's like $2,000 a month. You're going to be paying $3,000 in health insurance. So I was like, well, that's too much. I'll just stay at this job that I hate. So if anyone is teetering on the idea of self-employment, if it's just you, like if your spouse or if someone else has the benefits, super affordable. And Erin can help you with that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
course,
Sorry, I'm a dummy and I
absolutely.
don't know anything about anything, but this was really
no.
helpful.
I'm more than happy to help. I know insurance isn't the top of anyone's like, yay, I get to talk about this today, but I'm more than happy to, fill in the gaps and educate people because I know
thank you.
It's always fun.
Good. Well, anyone listening, do not delay. You should not be running your business without insurance. You're playing with fire.
Definitely. Yeah.
All
It's
right.
worth
Well, thank you so much. It was great talking with you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. As usual, I tried to keep it bright and light. Our presenting sponsor is 17 Hats, the CRM I use to cut the chaos and manage my entire balloon business. From the lead capture form on my website to workflows and email templates, invoicing and grab-and-go garland automated bookings, it's all powered by 17 Hats, the best customer relationship management system for balloon businesses. There's even a 50% off coupon code waiting for you in the show notes wherever you're listening. I'll see you next week in another episode.